I think being told that you can never ride a horse again is definitely up there with some of the worst news you can get from a vet. But sadly, those were the exact words said to us a few months back. Yeah, I've been putting off making this video for a little while now, guys, because as much as I really love sharing everything with you about the horses, this is one of those things where it was really hard for me to come out and share, and I had to sit with it for a little while. I had to kind of get myself in a headspace where I could actually come and do this video without getting upset and just being a little bit more pragmatic about it. So yeah, I wanted a bit of healing time, and just, yeah, we just needed it to be our thing for a little while so that we could kind of mourn the future that we had been planning, I guess. But I've got some really exciting stuff coming up literally like within the next week, and like I felt like I needed to make this video. I needed to get this off of my chest and kind of have it as a weight lifted, because I don't want to be bringing this forward with me for this kind of new chapter. So yeah, I just wanted to actually make this video. Typically I'm doing it on a rainy day, which is kind of, it goes with the somber tone of the video. Those words were said about my gorgeous homebred horse, Arie, who you guys know and absolutely love. He's actually currently in the field at the minute, bless him, although he's going to want to come in a minute because of the rain. Yeah, there's been so many questions about this gorgeous boy, because he was meant to be such a superstar. We bred him. He was out of my gorgeous event mare Lara, who was such a special horse to me. She was mega. She was so cool. She took me up to B100. Got her when I was like just turning 14. Definitely overhorsed myself. But she was just amazing and had so much heart. So yeah, we bred her with the same stallion as Winnie, Astral 53 his name was, and I was so excited. He was our first like proper homebred. He's absolutely gorgeous. He just looks beautiful. His markings are amazing. He moves beautifully. He jumps. Like, he was the whole package. So excited about him. There was me thinking I'll be able to film this outside, but the weather has well and truly come in. So I've moved to the hay store, which means, this is why I didn't want to do it in here, guys. We're going to get constant whickers from the horses in the barn, but we'll just have to deal with it. So yeah, he was just like the full package. We sent him away to be broken because, you know, your girl's a wimp, and the lovely, amazing lady that broke him was also like, she shared our excitement. She thought he was going to be absolutely mega. He was just a really smart horse. So yeah, we had him back, we did some work with him. As you guys know, I then turned him away. He was just always quite little, and neither his mum or his dad were that little, so we kind of knew that he just needed a little bit more time to grow. We'd obviously already waited like, what, 4 or 5 years, whatever it was. So yeah, we didn't want to rush him at all. Like, as I said, he was really meant to be a horse for the future. So we wanted to do everything by the book, give him as much time as possible, which is what he did. And then obviously I lead a very busy life, and this year especially was just absolutely manic because I had 2 horses going to badminton. Jam was obviously doing all of her rehab work. I was kind of battling my confidence crisis. There was just so much, and I remember feeling so swamped like in the early stages of this year. So he kind of just like ticked away in the background. We weren't thinking about him too much. He was doing little bits of like in hand work, and then it got to the point where I was like, okay, I've got a little bit more time now. So we started bringing him back into work, and yeah, he was a really good boy. Like, we were hacking him out and stuff. He was being like fab. And then he just started to show these little signs that stuff wasn't right. And before I go into this, I I don't want this to be like a really scaremongering thing, because what's happened with Arie is quite rare. We've been really unlucky, and I don't want people to watch this and be like, oh, my horse does that, this, like, maybe my horse has got that problem, because chances are, like, it won't be as bad as this. So yeah, I don't want to scare people, but equally, like, I want to tell you my experience, because potentially it might help someone get to the bottom of something, but equally, please don't watch this and think, oh my god, my horse has done that one thing, it must be the same, because yeah, probably not, guys. But all I can say is seek veterinary advice if you're worried. Anyway, so he just started to not enjoy his work as much, and he's always been a horse that is kind of up for stuff. He's very interested in everything, he loves people, he wants to please. And so, like, these little signs, although they were, from an outsider's point of view, literally probably nothing, we were just like, huh, like, that's a bit weird. So things like out hacking, like, he'd be really chirpy, and then he'd just suddenly be like really behind the leg, not wanting to move forward, and just like a bit like ears back, and just suddenly like not enjoying it. And it was like, that's weird, like, what's changed? Like, it would happen in different places. It's not like, oh, you know, he was being nappy and he'd get to a certain spot and he'd be like that. Like, it would be different every time. Sometimes you'd make it around the whole hack absolutely fine, other times he'd do it quite near the start. So that's kind of how it started. And then we just noticed he was getting like progressively less happy is the best way of saying it, but like, it was really difficult. I remember Mum and I being so stuck on it, because I'd be like, people would ask me like how he's going, and I'd be like, yeah, like, he's good, but sometimes, like, when I ride him in school and I push him, he like really says no. But never, it was never in a nasty way. It was always in like a stopping going forward. And knowing what we know now, I know what he was doing was incredibly genuine, because he was trying to tell me like, no, like, you need to get off me. But when you don't know the full picture, it's really hard with a young horse, and it's difficult, because I had some people, well, I'd loads of conflicting advice basically, and you know, all of the people that I have in my inner circle were amazing and giving me really good advice, but you get the odd drips and drabs from people that like you don't really know, or like, I don't know, you have to be having a conversation with, or like comments on Instagram and stuff like that, and messages of people being like, no, like, you just need to, like, he's taking the mick out of you, you need to like crack him on, like, just get going, like, he's just being naughty, send him away to a professional that's gonna like get after him and get him going. And we were just like there's just something just wasn't feeling quite right in both mine and Mum's gut. And like, I got to the point where I was like, maybe it is me, maybe it's because he's homebred, he knows he can take the mick out of me, and like, I'm not the kind of rider to be like really like, get on with it, like you're going. When they flag up an issue, my first response is to always be like, ooh, like, what's wrong, and kind of like treat it that way, which sometimes is great and sometimes does mean that you can get walked over by a horse. It'd been ticking along like that, and then we had kind of like the moment where we knew that something was wrong. So it was this normal day, I was tacking him up, ready to go out hacking, tacked him up the stable, chilled, like most chilled thing ever, turned him to walk out of the stable, and he erupted. Like, I've never seen a horse go as crazy as he went that day. It was absolutely terrifying. I ran out of the stable because I couldn't get near him, and he was just going ballistic in this stable. And that just wasn't normal. He had never, ever done that before. And we just knew, like, there was no reason for him to have done that other than being in pain. So we, at that point, we were like, okay, if, you know, it, like, to be honest, guys, it really scared me, it scared Mum. So we knew that we needed help regardless. Like, there was no way that I was now going to keep working this horse myself without getting help. But there was also no way that we were going to get help before we'd checked him out. Because, you know, we absolutely adore him. We owe it to him to know that there was nothing wrong before we, like, sent him off anywhere don't get me wrong, guys, we weren't going to send him anywhere to be like really told off or anything like that. We'd have probably ended up sending him back to the lovely lady that broke him, because she had the most amazing relationship with him. And yeah, she's like fearless, but just the softest rider ever. But we knew deep down, I think, that there was something wrong, and we wanted to like literally check him everywhere before trying to pursue him being ridden anymore. So yeah, we got our amazing vets out. We are so lucky. We've got the most fabulous vets. We use Field Equine Vets. Shout out to them, because we use them for everything, and they're the best. They're so good. Like, we have such a nice relationship with them. So we got them out and we were like, look, let's x-ray his back and let's x-ray his hocks, because those were kind of like the two most obvious areas to start. Obviously, it's a real stab in the dark because we really didn't have anything to go off. He wasn't lame. He was only like, up until that explosion, he really wasn't doing anything bad. And I think a lot of people thought we were absolutely mad spending all this money with the vets, but we just knew there was something up, something not right, and it was so out of character for him. So yeah, we had our amazing vet Jo out. She came, she x-rayed the back first. She did like a little like workup with him and like looked him all over and everything. X-rayed the back, and she was like, you know, like his back's not awful, like it's not great. He's very short coupled. She said some of the vertebrae were quite close, and although they weren't kissing, because I was like, has he got kissing spine? They weren't kissing when he was in a relaxed state. There was like some signs under the saddle where like around the bone, this is just my knowledge of it, guys, which is not very extensive because I'm not a vet, but around the bone you kind of get like this paler white bit if there has been any sort of like trauma, and it kind of showed a bit under the saddle. Possibly they had like very occasionally touched. But Jo was like, look, that's, you know, looking at that back, I would not be worried about it. Like, we could definitely medicate that, but she's like, that doesn't explain his behavior. She was like, that's not enough to make this horse that's always been lovely to suddenly have an outburst like that. So we were like, okay, where do we go from here? And instead of doing the hocks, Jo was like, oh, I want to x-ray the neck. And Mum and I, like, to be honest, we hadn't even crossed our mind the neck. Like, when you look at Arie, you like, if you're picking his conformation apart, you'd look at his back first and you'd be like, yeah, that's probably the most likely place to be an issue, because he's short coupled and he's like a little bit dipped, he's still a bit bum high. Literally, he's given all this time to grow, and honestly, he's still bum high. He's now 6, he's still bum high. His neck's beautiful. Like, I love his neck. So I never thought of that as an issue. But Jo was like, oh, I just have an inkling, like, I think you should x-ray the neck. So that's what we did, and that is where we sadly found the problem. That means he's never going to be ridden again. So he, again, guys, this is me trying to explain it in my own way. And remember, you know, this isn't fresh news for me. But essentially, he's very obstructed for the first, I think it's like the first 4 vertebrae of his neck. They're really enlarged, which means that they're very, well, they're not very close together. They're essentially touching. They're like near fusing, I think. But yeah, because they're so enlarged, they are like impinging on the nerves around his neck. So at the minute, like if he was an older horse, if he was like, I don't know, a show jumper that was 12 years old, that jumped all their life, and then suddenly you find this neck problem, you'd be like, okay, like maybe we can work with this. But the reality is he's a 6-year-old that's got his problem. We don't know why he's got this problem. The most likely cause is that he's done something stupid in the field that we've not seen. I don't know, like had some kind of fall that meant he's gone down on his neck, and that is kind of like shunted it. So that's like the most likely cause, but essentially he's at a point now where sometimes it can be fine, and sometimes it can just twinge on a nerve, and that would have been what happened that day. Probably when I turned him, I don't know if I turned him too abruptly or what, like it didn't feel anything mental, just felt like my normal day, like you've tacked your horse up at the back of the stable, come on, like let's turn and go out the door. But something must have happened at that point where it's like touched a nerve, and that's why we got the absolute eruption, because like, you know, with nerves on humans, it's the sharpest pain if you kind of like catch one. So it was such a blow to get that news. And obviously, like, the vets have to have a discussion with you, because at the end of the day it's down to the owner what you do. And you know, we had to get all the information, and Joe essentially was like, look, physically we could try and do something about it. We could do a CAT scan, we could see exactly where the issue, like, because you can do, so when we x-rayed him, obviously you get like a side profile, but you can do a CAT scan, which would basically give us like a cross section. So say like those are the bones of his neck, and we got like this view. You could do a CAT scan where you'd like, it would essentially be like chopping it down, and you'd look down the middle of it. So she said that might give us more information. We might be able to see like if there's like a catalyst point. And then yeah, absolutely, you could try surgery, you could try medicating. But she said, like, she was really brutally honest with us. She was like, I can only see this going very badly, because it's only, sadly for Arie, it's only ever going to get worse for him. So while like at the minute he's out in the field, he's literally happy as Larry, like he's absolutely living his best life, internally it is only going to deteriorate. And Joe was like, look, you've had one experience with him where it was dangerous behavior. I don't want to say behavior, because bless him, it was a reaction to pain, but you know, like dangerous behavior. And the sad thing is that whilst we could medicate and it would potentially like work, she said you're never going to get any warning as to when it's worn off, and the explosions are only going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And me and Mum and Joe know that it's not worth it. It's too dangerous to have a horse that is potentially going to be in a lot of pain out of nowhere. It's just not safe. And as much as, you know, I'd pinned so many hopes on Arie, I couldn't put either of us in that position where I could be riding him happily for months on end, and then one day he's going to do something, he's going to be in one certain position, and then he's going to absolutely erupt. And it wouldn't be his fault, but you know, he could end up killing both of us at the end of the day. So yeah, that was the day that we found out that I'd never ride Arie again. And it was really hard because everything had kind of been like normal-ish, and then obviously we just got these tiny little signs, and then we had that big eruption, and it kind of, yeah, it felt really difficult, because I'd been like, like, you know, I was expecting, well, not expecting, I was hoping to have the vet out and be proved wrong about this gut feeling. I think Mum and I both were. We were hoping to have the vet out, we'd x-ray him head to toe, we'd do whatever, do whatever we had to do. We were going to scope him, we were going to do the whole works just to make sure that there was nothing there. And then I was like hoping that it would just be me, like it would have just been a me problem. I'd have had someone else riding for a bit, and I'd have had the horse back that I'd already dreamed of. But yeah, sadly, that was not the case. But you know, I'm so lucky with how amazing my vets are that we found it so quickly, and Arie didn't have to go off and have, you know, like nights away at hospital, because you know it's so hard to find these things with horses, and so often it takes investigation after investigation after investigation. So no, that was definitely a positive. So I know that lots of you are now going to wonder what's next for Arie. So categorically, that horse will never be sat on again. He'll never have tack on again. It's It's not fair on him, it's not fair on any people. So he's essentially never going to leave my yard again. Like I had people, friends be like, oh, like, why don't you sell him as a companion? And it feels too irresponsible, because he is a gorgeous horse, and you'll see him trot across the field and he sounds a pound, and I know that someone will try and get on him and someone will get hurt and he'll be blamed for it, and it's just not his fault. So he's going to stay here with us. He's never going to leave this yard. And the sad reality is, like I said, guys, is although he looks happy now, he is only going to deteriorate. So at the minute, he's just chilling out. He's out with Arie. He comes in when it's grim weather, which is going to be in a minute. And it's just a case of we've got to really keep a close eye on him. And as soon as he starts showing pain signals in his day-to-day life, like when he's not being asked any stress, that's yeah, that'll be the time when we have to make the horrible call, which I don't want to say because it's really upsetting. But yeah, I think you guys know what I'm getting at. But the plan is to try and let him have a bit of a retirement. It's not really a retirement because he's not done loads of work. But yeah, we want to keep him happy and keep him, you know, in a safe, nice place with his friends for as long as we can. And we've just got to make sure that we're really on it with the signs. So we've been told by the vet what to look out for. Another thing that we found out when we were doing his initial workup before we x-rayed the neck, and one of the things that made Joe want to x-ray the neck, was that he had really bad, like, spatial awareness behind. No, sorry, it was good behind, it was really bad in front. So she did this test where she crossed his legs over, and because it obviously puts them off balance, they should put their feet like straight back. So she did that behind, and he was like, cross it back, cross it back, cross it back, and she did it in front, and he just stood like this until we moved his foot back for him. And Joe was saying it's like the brain receptors, like, sorry guys, this is me trying to explain it, which is really bad, but essentially, like, his legs aren't getting the messages from his brain because of the way that horses are all made up. Whatever is going on in his neck is essentially stopping the message going down to his feet that his feet are like that and that he's unbalanced. That's another thing that, like, you know, meant that he'd be very dangerous to ride if we kept going, because he just didn't have the kind of space awareness, like he just didn't have the awareness in his feet that he needed to be safe. So yeah, essentially we'll get to the point where we'll start to notice that he's less able to, I don't know, kind of like less balanced in front. She said it'll just be weird things you'll notice. You'll like pull him through a gate and he'll like cross his legs in a silly way and stuff like that. And that also with his neck, she said he'll eventually, like, he'll lose his kind of movement in his neck. So, like, you know, like putting his head down to graze or putting his head up will become hard. So yeah, the difficult thing is we don't know the timeline at all of what's going to happen with him. He could potentially be sat in a field happy for 10 years. It could be 10 weeks. Like, we don't know what, you know, how it's kind of going to go with it. But it's rubbish, to be honest, guys. I'm trying to be like positive with it. It's rubbish. It's so rubbish. I'm so gutted. And yeah, it's just been one of those things that's been weighing over me for the last few weeks, and I've wanted to wait to do this so that I could mostly get through it without getting upset. So that's the Arie update. Sorry that it's been really long and really chatty, but I wanted to just be a chatty video with you guys and try and explain everything. So at the minute, Az is going to be out in his field. Happy pony. I will go. I'll go see him in a minute. He's not going to look as happy pony as he normally does because he's going to be wet now. But yeah, so very sad news. But like I said, I don't want this to be like a scaremongering video. The only message I want to get across from this, guys, is that you know your horses. You'll know when their behaviour's, you know, just a bit out of character, and that's exactly what it was with Arie. It was out of character. And then the only advice I can give you is to just get a good vet and get a professional veterinary opinion on it and do the tests. Because sadly, you know, this is the kind of problem that it was never going to be particularly visible from doing the lameness workups or anything like that. So in this case, getting him x-rayed was definitely the best thing to do. But yeah, please don't worry if you're hacking your horse out and you're like, oh, you've suddenly gone really lazy. Like, I think we've got to stress that, you know, Arie was a homebred. We know this horse inside out. Like, I've known him since the day his hoofs touched the ground. It was just very obvious to us that something had changed. Like, something wasn't right, because he was just, yeah, it wasn't him, and his explosion really wasn't him. So yeah, that's where we're at. Yeah, I'm sure there'll still be updates on Instagram, and I hope that they'll be coming for the foreseeable future. But you know, we don't know exactly how long he's going to have left. And the most important thing to us is that he is not in pain. We don't want him to ever be suffering in pain. So our kind of outlook at the minute is just to give him the best life we can at the minute, and then once he starts telling us that actually his day-to-day life is causing him pain, it's not just because, you know, like day-to-day he's fine. It was only when he was being put under pressure, really. But yeah, once he starts telling us that, then yeah, that will be the end of an era. Anyway, I feel better. I feel like that was a bit of a cathartic experience, getting that all off my chest. But as I said, there's really exciting stuff coming up. So I do feel I feel better about this already. I think the time was definitely what I needed. So yeah, please don't worry about me, guys. I've come to terms with it now. And that is sadly, you know, these things do happen. That is one of the awful things about owning horses, owning any animals, isn't it? But yeah, please don't worry about me, and the next video that I put out is going to be a really, really exciting one, and one that I've been waiting to put out for ages. I've actually been dropping hints for you guys for quite a while. Don't really hints in this video because this is a really sad one, so you don't have to go back and watch this with a fine-tooth comb. Yeah, that's my update. Anyway, I live, laugh, love you. Yeah, sorry that this wasn't the video that any of us wanted to see or make or whatever, but there we go. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Bye.